Crew from Pat McAfee talked about the potential of the 2024 Browns. This is from ESPN.
I think if you just look at their team as a whole, they were probably the most banged up team that actually went on to go and do something. They at least went to the playoffs. You know, they lose both their starting tackles to season-ending injuries. Obviously, they lose Chubb to a terrible injury. He's going to be back. They have the continuity with Schwartz and with Stefanski, both play callers on both sides of the ball. If I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, kind of love the conversation around it too, being nothing. It's the Bengals, it's the Ravens, it's the Steelers, which, of course, rightfully so, all three of those teams, they all made huge moves this offseason too. But they brought back everybody, and they really didn't lose any of their biggest pieces. And then you add Mike Vrabel. You add possibly the greatest motivator in the history of football in Jameis Winston. And yes, Deshaun Watson said these last 2 years it's been hard to block out the bullshit. Definitely an interesting way to phrase what's happened the last 2 years. But with Jameis Winston in your ear, just giving you motivation 24/7, it's probably going to help him out a lot with having him there. But yeah, also add Jerry Jeudy and Amari Cooper. Elijah Moore and David Njoku kind of came on at the end of the year, too, last year.
Same old line.
Same old line. And, DeJuan Jones, he has a lot more experience now. And they added Zach Zinter in the middle from Michigan. I mean, kind of look out for the Browns if you're in the AFC.
Fred, you and I have talked about it. I can't argue with I agree with most of what they said. And we've said this before. Biggest thing with Deshaun Watson, if he plays 15, 16, 17 games, the numbers are going to be there. They just are.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a broken record. I think it just goes back to number 4, him being on the field. You got, even statistically, the defense was number 1 in the NFL. Now, I'm more interested in how many points they allow. I think they were 11th. So I don't care where they are statistically other than points allowed. But if they can get, allowing a team under 20 a game, this offense ought to be able to score points. They have a weapon with Dustin Hopkins, an accurate kicker, and he showed last year he can, hit from over 50 yards. And if Watson's on the field, he's got the playmakers to get the ball. And, I understand why nationally they're under the radar. They were under the radar last year, same reason. But this year they've actually proven a little bit with their defense. I think it comes back, number one, because the quarterback has not really been on the field and done much when he's been out there, but because of the division and the AFC. I mean, Myles Garrett called it a slaughterhouse, the AFC as a whole. I mean, you could make a case for a bunch of teams making, to the Super Bowl. But just in the Browns division, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Bengals, and the Browns, you could make a case for any one of those teams getting first place, or you could make a case for anyone getting last place. And a lot of it is because the quarterback. Look at the Bengals last year. Everybody thought they were ready to go to the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow gets hurt. They get last place. They still had a winning record, 9-8, but I think it was 9-8. Might have been 8-9. I think all 4 had a winning record.
Yeah. Yep,
but
they
the
did.
Steelers, they went out and get Russ Wilson and Justin Fields. That, to me, was their biggest problem, was their quarterback play. And between those two, I think they upgraded. Ravens got the reigning MVP. And so that's why, it's so important to win your division, because you get that, you get the playoff berth, but you clinch home field advantage. Obviously the Ravens, lost to the Chiefs, but I really think with the Browns, even last year, they're 8-1 at home. I think if they would have had a bye and had a team coming in to play them, they might have had a chance to win that first game. I know they'd had a chance, and who knows what happens, but 60 or 17 games are in the division. So it's beating each other up. And again, attrition when it comes to quarterbacks and key players. I mean, if Lamar Jackson goes down, sorry, the Ravens aren't going anywhere. If Joe Burrow is not playing, sorry, the Bengals aren't going anywhere. And the Steelers, I mean, I don't know if they are, but if Wilson and Fields aren't playing, sorry, they're not going anywhere. So it really comes down to the key player, on the team to me continues to be the quarterback. Now I think Jameis Winston's a pretty good backup. In fact, I think he can do things that Joe Flacco can't do. And he's only 30. So you want Watson to be on the field and do what he did in the past, but with this defense and the playmakers on offense and the tackles returning, I just think that they're right there.
Yeah, I'm with you. The health, it's boring to say, and a lot of people roll their eyes when you say it. Health is going to be a lot of what determines this division. Which team can stay the healthiest and have its players on the field the most? It always is. This
The
one,
final four teams last year all had their franchise quarterback,
yeah,
Mahomes, Jackson in the AFC. And you just go down the list. That is so important, and that's where I've said all along, Deshaun Watson doesn't have to be a Pro Bowler this year. If he just plays, in the top 15, top of the pack, this team can make the playoffs. They showed that last year, with five different quarterbacks. But for them to go deep, I think he really needs to, be up there in the top 10 or 12. But I think if he stays on the field, I think that he has a chance. As we saw, and I pointed out over the course of the last year, he never really got going. They always say he played 12 games since he's been here. Well, the suspension the first year, he really never could get going in the middle of that first season, 6 games. But even last year, third game, he gets hurt. He sits out. He tries to come back. He sits out. He starts up. He starts looking pretty good, and then he gets hurt again. So it's kind of unfair to judge last year because of the injuries. You don't know how much the shoulder turns out the broken bone. Was it, from the third game on, did that affect all the way through? So I'm just giving him a clean slate, and it's just time to be on the field and produce.